Some secrets refuse to stay buried, not because they are hidden well, but because they defy explanation. Across centuries, strange events have left behind fragments, unexplained disappearances, impossible artifacts, and moments where reality itself seems to fracture. What happened to those who vanished without a trace? Who, or what, left behind clues that science still cannot decode? These are not myths, but documented enigmas that continue to haunt history. So sit back, turn down the lights, and let's step into the unknown together. The Abbasid Caliphate once ruled the heart of the Islamic world, its capital, Baghdad, a beacon of culture, knowledge, and unimaginable wealth. Among the treasures accumulated during the reign of al-Mu'taz, the 14th Caliph of the Abbasids, were artifacts so legendary, so opulent, that they would have made kings envious. His treasures, glittering with gold, precious jewels, and artifacts of immense historical and artistic value, were believed to rival those of any other ruler in the medieval world. Yet, by the time al-Mu'taz met his tragic end in 869 AD, much of his accumulated wealth had mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only traces of a once untold fortune. The disappearance of these treasures is one of history's most enigmatic episodes, and it is surrounded by uncertainty, conflicting accounts, and unanswered questions. What happened to them? Were they stolen, hidden, or perhaps destroyed? Even now, centuries later, the world remains divided on the fate of al-Mu'taz's wealth, and it's impossible to ignore the profound sense of mystery that surrounds this vanishing. Al-Mu'taz was not the first to possess treasures of great value. Throughout the Islamic Golden Age, rulers and caliphs amassed hoards of gold and relics. But al-Mu'taz's reign was distinct, characterized not just by wealth, but by political instability. As tensions between the caliph and his military commanders escalated, it is believed that in the final days of his rule, his wealth may have been hidden, perhaps in an effort to protect it from those who sought to undermine his authority. Some believe that it was during the violent coup that led to his eventual murder that the treasures were concealed. Historically, the fall of al-Mu'taz's rule was marked by a coup d'état led by his own military commanders, a bloody and decisive blow to his authority. The caliph was imprisoned, then executed. Yet, the treasures he had so carefully accumulated during his reign, described as priceless, vanished without a trace. Some of the most cherished items, such as ornate jewelry, gold coins, and fine silks, were said to have been hidden away in secret chambers within the caliph's palace. But these chambers, like the treasure, were lost to time. Was this an intentional act by the caliph to protect his wealth, or did his enemies claim it for themselves? Various theories have been proposed. Some argue that the treasures were hidden in the chaos following al-Mu'taz's death, perhaps buried beneath the streets of Baghdad or even in the desert beyond. Others suggest that the wealth may have been stolen by the very commanders who deposed him. With the Abbasid Empire's influence waning, it's conceivable that a small group of trusted officials might have moved swiftly to secure the treasure for their own gain. More speculative theories involve the possibility that the treasures were smuggled out of the region. Some suggest that the treasure could have been secretly transported across the desert to distant lands, perhaps to Egypt, or even further into the heart of North Africa. Another possibility is that the treasure was never physically hidden at all, but instead was moved to a place beyond the reach of time, hidden in plain sight, concealed within the very records of history itself. The most captivating and peculiar theory, however, is that the treasures were not merely taken, but disappeared in a more mystical sense. Could the vast wealth, laden with historical significance, have been hidden by supernatural means? Some have even wondered if a curse lay upon the treasure, ensuring that it could never be found, forever lost to the sands of time. Over the centuries, attempts to locate al-Mu'taz's treasures have been few and far between, yet none have borne fruit. Archaeologists, treasure hunters, and historians have combed through ancient records, but the treasure seems to elude them at every turn. If it was hidden, where could it be? And if it was taken, who would have been capable of concealing it so thoroughly? The absence of these treasures is a void in history. It leaves a haunting question that lingers through the ages. What happened to the wealth of Al-Mu'taz, and will it ever be recovered? Or is it possible that the treasures were never meant to be found, lost forever in the shadow of a caliph's tragic fall? Perhaps, like so many mysteries from the past, the disappearance of the Abbasid treasure will remain unsolved, a piece of the past that refuses to reveal itself. As we look to the horizon, we are reminded that some answers may remain elusive, and some secrets may never come to light. As we leave behind the shadowy depths of lost treasures and vanishing wealth, we turn our attention to another enigma, one that has puzzled sailors and adventurers for centuries. Off the western coast of Ireland, there exists a name that echoes through the annals of myth and history: Hy-Brasil. This phantom island, shrouded in mist and legend, has been reported on maps and in sailors' tales for over 1,000 years. Its elusive nature, combined with accounts of its appearance and disappearance, has captivated imaginations and stirred the curiosity of those seeking answers to its mysteries. Hy-Brasil is said to be an island of unparalleled beauty, a land of verdant fields and towering ancient structures, often described as a paradise. Those who claim to have seen it describe it as a shimmering vision, appearing for a brief moment out of the fog, only to vanish again, leaving no trace of its existence. According to legend, it was inhabited by an advanced civilization, wise and mystical, and some stories even suggest that the island was home to magical beings. Yet, despite numerous reported sightings from sailors and explorers, no concrete evidence of its existence has ever been found. The first recorded mention of Hy-Brasil dates back to the 2nd century BC, when the Greek geographer Ptolemy included it on his maps, though he placed it far to the west, beyond the known world. Over the centuries, other maps and documents echoed this strange inclusion, some placing the island off the coast of Ireland, others further into the Atlantic Ocean. These references, often inconsistent in their details, suggest that Hy-Brasil was a subject of intrigue for many cultures, including the Celts, who may have added to the mythos through their oral traditions. The earliest accounts of Hy-Brasil in written history tell of a vast, beautiful land covered in lush forests and inhabited by a peaceful and enlightened people. Some sources claim that the island was visible only once every 7 years, emerging from the mist for a brief, fleeting moment. Others suggest that its appearance was linked to specific celestial events, such as the alignment of certain stars or the phases of the moon. With such varying accounts, it is easy to see why the island has remained a subject of fascination for those who study both the natural and supernatural realms. But the question remains: why does Hy-Brasil appear on maps, yet no one has ever set foot on its shores? Some historians believe that the island may have been a cartographer's error, a mirage of sorts that was mistaken for solid land. Perhaps it was an island that was briefly visible during unusual weather patterns, only to be obscured by fog or storms shortly afterward. Such phenomena, known as Fata Morgana mirages, have been observed in the Atlantic, where layers of hot and cold air can create the illusion of distant land. Could this have been the origin of the mysterious sightings of Hy-Brasil? Yet, this theory fails to fully explain the consistency of the sightings or the rich descriptions of the island that were passed down through generations. There is also the matter of the folklore surrounding Hy-Brasil, which suggests that it was not merely a geographical location, but a place of profound significance. In Irish mythology, Hy-Brasil was said to be an island of the gods, a paradise where the dead could dwell. It was described as a utopia, full of knowledge and wisdom, and some have even speculated that the island might be a metaphor for an ancient lost civilization, perhaps a precursor to the civilizations that rose in Egypt, Greece, or even the Americas. In more recent times, some have suggested that Hy-Brasil was a victim of human intervention. Could it have been a real island that was destroyed by natural disasters, such as rising sea levels, earthquakes, or volcanic activity? The island's name itself, which in some translations means Island of the Blessed, hints at the possibility of a once glorious civilization that faded from existence, its final resting place swallowed by the ocean. However, not all theories are rooted in the natural world. Some have ventured into the realm of the mystical, suggesting that Hy-Brasil might exist on a different plane of reality, appearing only to those who are worthy or through certain unexplained conditions. Could the island be an interdimensional realm, accessible only at specific times or under certain cosmic conditions? Or is it a place tied to the collective consciousness of the people who have believed in it for so long? As we continue our search for answers, the question remains unanswered. What, if anything, is Hy-Brasil? Could it be a lost piece of our history, a forgotten civilization, or perhaps something beyond our understanding? The sightings, the maps, the myths, they all persist, leading us to wonder what, if anything, is still hidden beneath the mist. After exploring the fleeting visions of a phantom island that defies both time and reason, we now turn to a story that remains equally enigmatic, rooted in the history of a place where silence is more than just the absence of sound. It is the very fabric of its mystery. The Stoudios Monastery, nestled in the heart of Constantinople, was once a thriving center of monastic life, a haven for spiritual reflection and religious devotion. Yet, within its ancient walls, there exists a strange incident, a silence so profound that it has confounded historians and scholars for centuries. The silent monastery of Stoudios, an event shrouded in layers of history, myth, and speculation. The monastery, founded in the 5th century, stood as a beacon of Byzantine monasticism, revered for its asceticism, its learning, and its religious significance. But by the 9th century, it became the focal point of a bizarre occurrence, an event that would lead to its ultimate silence. As the story goes, the monks of Stoudios suddenly ceased all activity and communication, disappearing from the monastery overnight. The library, once filled with the scholarly works of the church, was left abandoned, its pages left untouched, its scrolls scattered. What could have driven these devout men to abandon their sacred duties and leave their holy refuge in such a strange and final manner? There is no single definitive answer. The first mention of this incident appears in Byzantine Chronicles, where it is described as a mysterious and inexplicable vanishing. According to some accounts, the monks were seen praying and chanting in the evening, as was their custom. But when dawn broke, the monastery was eerily quiet. The sounds of prayer, of ritual, and of communal life had all ceased. The doors to the cells were left open, the candles still burning, but there was no sign of life. The monks had simply disappeared, leaving behind their sacred texts and personal belongings, as though they had vanished into thin air. Historians have offered a variety of explanations. Some argue that this was a case of mass desertion, a response to the political and religious turmoil that was sweeping the Byzantine Empire at the time. In the 9th century, the empire was in the midst of the iconoclastic controversy, a period marked by fierce debates over the use of religious icons. The Stoudios monastery had been a stronghold of icon veneration, and the monks' deep commitment to their beliefs may have led them to abandon the monastery in protest when Emperor Leo V decreed the destruction of icons. Could the monks have left in protest, unwilling to comply with an imperial decree they found heretical? Others suggest that the monks were victims of a more ominous force. Some scholars speculate that the monastery was the site of a dark, supernatural event, perhaps a curse or a divine punishment. The silence, the disappearance, and the abandonment of their sacred space all point to something beyond the ordinary. Could it have been that the monastery itself was a site of some ancient, hidden power, something that had been disturbed and was now taking its toll on those who had sought to protect it? Did the monks become the unwilling recipients of some terrible curse, one that led them to vanish without a trace? Even more bizarre are the fringe theories that suggest a more fantastical explanation. Some propose that the monks may have been swept away by an interdimensional event, a rupture in time or space, pulling them into another realm. The idea of hidden dimensions, portals, or temporal rifts has captivated the imagination of many, and while there is no evidence to support these ideas, the complete and sudden disappearance of the monks leaves room for such speculation. What is perhaps most unsettling about this story is the fact that, over the centuries, no trace of the monks has ever been found. Despite extensive searches in and around the monastery, no remains, no artifacts, no written accounts from the monks themselves have ever surfaced. The monastery, once home to an active and devout community, fell into silence, and with it, the possibility of uncovering what happened to those who vanished. Could the monks have been part of a larger conspiracy or movement that sought to silence their influence? Were they punished for their defiance of imperial authority, or did they simply vanish into the unknown, their fate sealed by forces beyond comprehension? The silent monastery of Stoudios remains a haunting mystery, its unanswered questions echoing through the centuries. What happened to the monks? Where did they go? And why? Were they the victims of a political purge, a supernatural curse, or something far more incomprehensible? As time passes and the monastery slowly fades into the backdrop of history, the silence that once enveloped it continues to hold its secrets. And so, as with many mysteries of the past, we are left with only questions that may never be fully answered. As we continue to explore the bizarre and unexplained, we are reminded that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Some, like the silence of Stoudios, are destined to remain lost in time, leaving us to wonder what truths still lie hidden in the shadows of history. In the sweltering heat of the ancient marshlands, near the borders of what is now southern Iraq, an eerie silence clings to the earth. The once bustling sites of the Zanj rebellion, a violent insurrection that ravaged the Abbasid Caliphate in the 9th century, are today largely forgotten. The very soil that once trembled under the weight of rebellion now bears no hint of its tragic past. But beneath this quiet exterior, the mystery of what happened to the survivors of the Zanj rebellion still stirs questions that remain unanswered. The Zanj rebellion, which began in 869 AD, was one of the most significant uprisings in the history of the Abbasid Caliphate. Led by a charismatic and enigmatic figure named Ali ibn Muhammad, enslaved East African workers, known as the Zanj, rose against their harsh treatment in the salt marshes of southern Iraq, where they were forced to labor. It was a violent, bloody conflict, one that shook the foundations of the Abbasid regime. The Zanj army, which swelled to tens of thousands, captured and held the city of Basra for several years before being violently suppressed. The rebellion was eventually crushed by the Caliphate's forces in 883 AD, but the fate of its survivors remains a source of deep speculation. Historical records tell us that the rebellion's brutal end was marked by the death of its leader, Ali ibn Muhammad, and the subsequent disbandment of the Zanj forces. But what happened to the survivors? Some say they were scattered to the winds, their once unified force disbanded and absorbed into the vast, unyielding fabric of the empire. Others suggest they were forcibly resettled, their identities erased under the weight of imperial control. Yet, when one looks closer, there are whispers of something far more unsettling. In the centuries that followed the Zanj rebellion, there were occasional reports of groups of Zanj people who mysteriously disappeared from history altogether. These survivors, it seems, vanished without a trace. No records exist to tell us where they went or what became of them. Could they have escaped, forming hidden communities beyond the reach of the Abbasid authorities? Did they disappear into the vast deserts and marshlands, perhaps even establishing their own settlements that history would later forget? Some theorists speculate that the survivors of the Zanj rebellion might have traveled to distant lands, either across the sea to the east or deep into the Arabian Peninsula. Stories have surfaced over the years of settlements in the far reaches of the Arabian deserts, where small communities of people with dark skin and African features were said to exist in near isolation. Could these be the lost descendants of the Zanj rebels? Could their legacy be hidden in plain sight, carried away by time and the vast, shifting sands? Others suggest a far more sinister fate, one where the survivors were captured and subjected to forced labor in the far-flung reaches of the empire. Could they have been taken to distant lands as slaves once again, their rebellion quashed not by force of arms, but by the slow erasure of their very existence? Perhaps the most chilling theory, however, is that the Zanj rebellion was not just a single, isolated event, but part of a far broader resistance that continued, hidden, across centuries. Some believe that the descendants of the Zanj, after being scattered and lost to history, may have continued to resist the power of empires, living in secret and escaping the notice of historians for centuries. Could there still be places in the world where the echoes of their defiance linger? There are no answers, only fragments, scattered references in ancient texts, fleeting rumors carried by the winds of time. Yet, the mystery remains. What became of the survivors of the Zanj rebellion? Were they truly erased from history, or have they simply slipped through the cracks, their stories untold, their names forgotten? As the years pass, the shadow of the rebellion grows ever fainter, but its unanswered questions remain. Perhaps the truth is buried in some forgotten place, waiting to be discovered. Or perhaps, as time continues its relentless march, the mystery of the Zanj rebellion will remain one of history's greatest unsolved riddles. Beneath the scorching Andalusian sun, the Guadalquivir River winds through the ancient city of Córdoba, its waters flowing steadily across the Spanish landscape, reflecting the colors of the sky and the ripples of history. Yet, centuries ago, the river's waters were said to have burned, not with fire, but with something far more mysterious. The burning river of Córdoba is one of the most baffling and unsettling tales to emerge from Spain's storied past, a story wrapped in fire, water, and unanswered questions. The records we have today point to the 10th century, a time when Córdoba was a thriving metropolis at the heart of the Muslim world in Al-Andalus. The city was renowned for its knowledge, culture, and prosperity, a jewel of the Islamic Golden Age. But even in such an enlightened era, there were mysteries that defied explanation. One of the most perplexing incidents occurred in the year 951 AD, when, for reasons unknown, the waters of the Guadalquivir River seemed to ignite in an extraordinary and horrifying spectacle. Eyewitness accounts, chronicled by various historians of the time, describe the river's surface suddenly catching flame, its once peaceful flow transformed into a blaze of intense heat and light. The fire was said to burn for several days, with flames licking the air and a thick, acrid smoke choking the city. According to some accounts, the flames would not consume the river's water, but instead seemed to burn the very surface of the water itself, as if some unnatural force was at work. The river's banks, however, remained untouched by the inferno, creating an odd and unsettling contrast. But what caused this phenomenon? Some of the more plausible explanations center on the chemical composition of the Guadalquivir's waters. The region around Córdoba, particularly during the time of the Caliphate, was known for certain natural phenomena, including sulfur deposits and natural gas pockets deep beneath the earth. Could a sudden release of methane gas, a highly flammable substance, have risen to the surface of the river, ignited by a spark or lightning strike? This theory suggests a natural, if extraordinary, explanation, where the river itself was not burning, but its surface was momentarily covered by an explosive accumulation of gas. However, not all historians are content with this explanation. Some point to the possibility of human interference, an alchemical experiment gone wrong, perhaps. The 10th century was a time of intense scientific curiosity, where scholars and alchemists alike were experimenting with potions, chemical reactions, and attempts to manipulate the natural world. Could a chemical compound have accidentally spilled into the river, causing the water to burn in a manner never before seen? There were accounts of alchemists in the city of Córdoba conducting bizarre and secretive experiments, some of which involved strange substances and volatile reactions. Could one of these experiments have inadvertently triggered the fiery phenomenon? And then there is the more speculative view, one that edges into the realm of the supernatural. Some have suggested that the event was the result of a curse or a divine sign. Could the mysterious fire be a warning, a supernatural message to the people of Córdoba? The city, after all, was the seat of the powerful and influential Caliph Abd al-Rahman III, whose reign was marked by both prosperity and strife. Could the flames on the river be an omen of the shifting political or religious tides, a message from the heavens themselves? While there are those who remain firmly in the realm of science and rationality, the story of the burning river of Córdoba continues to captivate imaginations. No definitive answer has ever emerged, and the accounts of the event are as shrouded in mystery as the flames themselves. Even today, as we look upon the Guadalquivir River, we are left to wonder, could the waters of the river ever again catch fire? Or was this a one-time anomaly? Or perhaps, just perhaps, the answers are still buried beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. What truly caused the river to burn, and why did it remain unexplained for so long? Was it a natural disaster, an alchemical misstep, or something altogether beyond our comprehension? The truth remains elusive, a lingering enigma from the depths of Córdoba's past. Perhaps, in time, we will know more, or perhaps this strange tale will continue to burn in the annals of history, never quite extinguished. The Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 AD, a golden age of cultural and intellectual achievement in China, saw its capital, Chang'an, rise as the most populous and prosperous city in the world. Nestled between the mountainous terrain and vast open plains, Chang'an was not only the political heart of the empire, but also a center of trade, art, and religion. As the city flourished, the skies above it, too, witnessed extraordinary events, one of the most perplexing being the mysterious lights that appeared in the heavens during the 8th century. It is said that in the year 755 AD, as the empire stood at the brink of both greatness and turmoil, the people of Chang'an and other parts of the empire witnessed strange lights in the sky. These were no ordinary stars or celestial phenomena. They were described as flickering orbs, shimmering streaks, and dazzling streaks of light that seemed to move across the sky, changing colors as they did. Some accounts claim they resembled great comets, their tails glowing brightly. Others described the lights as flying lanterns or fire-drawn arrows, cutting through the darkened sky with unnatural precision. The first official records of these sightings were reported by court astronomers. These men, charged with interpreting the heavens and keeping a watchful eye on the cosmic forces, were deeply disturbed by what they saw. The lights seemed to defy any logical explanation, appearing suddenly and with a vivid intensity that unsettled the scholars. In an era where the movements of stars and planets were believed to be omens, the lights were regarded as a harbinger of something significant. But what? Historians and scholars today are divided on how to interpret these mysterious lights. Some suggest the phenomenon could have been a natural event, a meteor shower perhaps, or the appearance of a comet. During this period, comets were often viewed as ominous symbols, and it's not unlikely that a particularly striking celestial event could have caused such a stir among the people of Chang'an. After all, the Tang Dynasty was a time of great upheaval, with the An-Lushan rebellion breaking out just a few years after the lights were first recorded. The fear and uncertainty caused by these rebellious forces could have only heightened the public's sensitivity to celestial events, interpreting them as signs of doom or divine displeasure. But even with this explanation, there are many aspects of the mystery that remain unresolved. For one, the descriptions of the lights vary significantly from typical meteorological phenomena. The orbs that flickered in the sky, changing colors and shapes, seem to have been more than just passing meteors or comets. They were described as active, almost intelligent in their movement, behaving in ways that no ordinary comet or meteor would. Some fringe theories suggest that the lights might have been something far more unusual, perhaps an early encounter with unknown or extraterrestrial phenomena. The description of the lights as fire-drawn arrows and their otherworldly nature has led some to speculate that the event might have been an encounter with something not of this earth. Could the people of the Tang Dynasty have been witnessing a phenomenon far beyond their understanding, something we might consider today as unexplained aerial phenomena? Others argue that these lights could have been a reflection of human error or exaggeration, a collective psychological experience in which the population of Chang'an, already under great strain due to internal conflict, misinterpreted common celestial events. Could the lights have simply been a product of mass hysteria, born from the rumors of war and the shifting political landscape of the time? Were the people of the Tang Dynasty merely projecting their anxieties into the skies above them? One more possibility lies in the realm of the supernatural. In ancient Chinese beliefs, the skies were often seen as the domain of the gods, and celestial events were interpreted as direct messages from the heavens. Perhaps the lights were an omen, a divine signal warning of the impending strife that would soon grip the empire. The An-Lushan rebellion, which began shortly after the Sightings, was one of the most destructive civil wars in Chinese history, and some suggest that the lights were a prescient symbol of the chaos to come. But whatever the true cause may have been, the mystery of the lights over Tang Dynasty skies remains unsolved. As we peer into the vast expanse of the cosmos today, we continue to search for answers to phenomena that defy explanation. Were the lights of 755 AD simply a natural event? Or were they something more, something we have yet to fully understand? The skies may have offered a glimpse of something beyond our reach, a momentary connection between the heavens and the earth that history has left shrouded in mystery. The question remains, what, truly, did the people of the Tang Dynasty see in the heavens above, and what did it mean for their future? Perhaps the lights that streaked across their skies are a riddle that will continue to perplex us, just as the stars above continue to glitter, silent and unmoving, waiting for us to decipher their message. As we continue our exploration of strange and inexplicable events throughout history, we turn our focus to the vast plains of the Eurasian steppe, a land that once served as the cradle for the Khazar Empire, an enigmatic state that rose and fell between the 7th and 11th centuries. The Khazars, a Turkic people of considerable power and influence, controlled a large swath of land between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. They are remembered for their intriguing political and religious transformation, including the royal conversion to Judaism in the 8th century. Yet, For all their influence and the grandeur of their kingdom, a chilling mystery remains. What happened to the royal records of the Khazars? Why, after the empire's sudden collapse, do we have so little trace of their once thriving culture, religion, and politics? The capital of the Khazar Empire, Atil, was strategically located at the convergence of the Volga and Caspian Seas, a city that flourished as a cultural and commercial hub. Atil was a beacon of wealth, learning, and diplomacy, where Jewish scholars, traders from the Byzantine Empire, and emissaries from as far as China and the Arabian Peninsula all met. It was in this vibrant city that the Khazar rulers, at the peak of their power, made the bold decision to convert to Judaism, an event that has since captured the imagination of historians and theologians alike. This conversion marked the Khazars as unique in the history of the world, as they were one of the only major powers in history to adopt Judaism as their state religion. In the wake of this dramatic shift, the Khazars recorded their royal decrees, treaties, and cultural achievements in meticulous detail, preserving these records for future generations. Or so we thought. When the empire was finally overrun in the 11th century, it fell into obscurity. The once great city of Atil was abandoned, its people scattered, and its records, seemingly all of them, disappeared. What remains today is a sparse collection of historical references, many of them from outside observers who only had fragmented glimpses into the Khazar world. The disappearance of the Khazar royal records is one of the most perplexing aspects of their history. By the time the empire collapsed under the weight of invasions from the Kievan Rus and other forces, the precious documents that chronicled the Khazar state seemed to vanish without a trace. These records, which were undoubtedly written on parchment, papyrus, or early forms of paper, must have been invaluable in preserving the legacy of the Khazar civilization. Yet, no definitive archives or manuscripts from the Khazar court have ever been found. It is as though the very existence of the Khazar Empire was erased from history with the fall of Atil. There are numerous theories that attempt to explain this disappearance. One of the most widely accepted explanations is the idea of deliberate destruction. Some scholars believe that, as the Khazar Empire fell into decline and was eventually conquered, the royal records were destroyed, either in an attempt to erase the legacy of the Khazars or simply as a consequence of the chaos of war. Given the political and religious tensions of the time, it is possible that the Khazar rulers or their successors sought to prevent any surviving documents from falling into the hands of their enemies, particularly the Christian Kievan Rus, who had long been in conflict with the Khazars. Did the invaders systematically purge the empire's records to erase the memory of the Khazars and their influence on the region? But this theory raises more questions than it answers. If the records were intentionally destroyed, why did they leave behind no remnants? Why did no copies, no fragments of these once important documents survive the centuries? Surely, given the number of different cultures and civilizations that interacted with the Khazars, at least a few records would have been preserved, even if only in fragments. But nothing has surfaced. No official documents, no letters, no treaties, not even a single royal manuscript. Another theory, though more speculative, is that the Khazar records were somehow lost in the upheaval that followed the empire's collapse. It is possible that the archives were simply abandoned during the fall of Atil, left behind as the Khazars fled from the advancing invaders. In this scenario, the royal documents may have been scattered and lost to time, buried beneath the ruins of the city, or perhaps even washed away in the river currents. But this too seems unlikely, as the Khazars would have likely made efforts to safeguard such important materials during their retreat, especially considering the role these records played in preserving their royal lineage and culture. There is also the tantalizing possibility that the Khazar records were hidden, perhaps by the Khazars themselves. Did the ruling elite, faced with the collapse of their empire, bury their most sacred and important documents, intending to keep them safe for future generations? Some have suggested that the Khazars may have gone to great lengths to protect their records, hiding them in secret locations or dispersing them among trusted allies. Perhaps, even today, the royal records of the Khazars remain buried, waiting to be discovered in some long-forgotten cave or archive. A more fringe theory ventures into the realm of the supernatural, suggesting that the disappearance of the Khazar royal records could have been the result of a curse or divine retribution. Given the unique nature of the Khazar conversion to Judaism, some have speculated that the loss of the records was a punishment, either from God or from the forces of history itself, seeking to erase a people who had made such a radical choice. While there is no evidence to support this theory, the sense of the records being lost to time certainly evokes a sense of mystery and the unexplained. As we delve deeper into the history of the Khazar Empire, the disappearance of their royal records continues to perplex and haunt us. Were they destroyed in a deliberate act of political erasure? Or were they hidden away in a secret vault, only to remain undisturbed for centuries? The absence of these crucial documents leaves a gap in our understanding of one of the most fascinating and complex civilizations of the medieval world. The mystery of the Khazar royal records is a puzzle that may never be solved, one more unanswered question in the long and enigmatic story of human history. And as we reflect on their loss, we are reminded that some pieces of the past, no matter how significant, remain forever lost to the sands of time. As we move through the ages, uncovering lost kingdoms and long-forgotten secrets, we find ourselves in the rugged, windswept landscapes of northern England. Here, amidst the green hills of Northumbria, a peculiar and unsettling mystery once captivated the imaginations of both the faithful and the skeptical alike. This is the story of the Talking Cross of Northumbria, an artifact that, for a time, seemed to defy all logic and belief. Northumbria, during the 7th and 8th centuries, was a kingdom that stood at the crossroads of early Christian expansion into the British Isles. Christianity was slowly taking root, pushing back against the pagan traditions that had once dominated these lands. In this age of spiritual upheaval, Northumbria was home to powerful rulers, such as King Oswald and his successors, who championed the Christian faith. But it was also a time when the line between the miraculous and the supernatural was often blurred, and the stories told in the shadows were sometimes more extraordinary than anything that could be explained by conventional faith. In the year 675 AD, a strange event was said to have occurred in the kingdom, a phenomenon that would be recorded in both Christian texts and the lore of the time. The centerpiece of this mystery was a simple wooden cross, a relic of religious devotion, no different from countless others that dotted the landscape of Christianized Europe. But this particular cross was unlike any other. It was reported to have spoken. The cross, which stood near the royal palace of King Ecgfrith, was said to have called out to the king and his court, delivering a cryptic message that chilled those who were present. The most detailed account of the event comes from the Venerable Bede, one of the most important scholars of the early medieval period, who chronicled the strange occurrence in his ecclesiastical history of the English people. According to Bede's account, the cross spoke in a voice that was heard by many people in the vicinity, and it proclaimed a warning of imminent danger. The voice, which emanated from the cross, delivered words that foretold doom for the kingdom, predicting a catastrophic defeat at the hands of the pagan Picts. Bede's record does not delve deeply into the specifics of the message or the circumstances surrounding the event, leaving us with only vague details. What was most perplexing, however, was the nature of the cross itself. Why did it speak? How could a mere symbol of Christian faith, fashioned from wood, utter words that seemed to carry divine authority? The mystery was not just in the message, but in the very existence of a cross that could communicate with the living. Was this an artifact imbued with some mysterious power, or was it simply a trick, perhaps a sign from the divine to warn the king. The implications of such an event were profound. In an era where miracles were often seen as divine interventions, the talking cross would have been viewed as a sign of extraordinary importance. But, despite the awe it inspired, we find little record of what happened to the cross itself after the incident. Did it remain in Northumbria as a holy relic, a reminder of the divine voice that had once been heard? Or did it disappear, just as mysteriously as it had appeared? While the account from Bede is the most famous, there are several other references to this phenomenon from the period, all of which seem to corroborate the general idea of a talking cross. However, none of these sources provide any further clarity. In fact, the details surrounding the event become even more cryptic as we explore them. Some accounts claim that the cross didn't just speak to the king, it spoke to the people of the kingdom, warning them of a great tragedy that was soon to unfold. Others speak of the cross calling out for repentance, urging those who heard its voice to prepare for divine judgment. One theory suggests that the cross might have been a piece of a much larger and more intricate ritualistic device, perhaps used in a form of ancient religious ceremony. Could it be that the talking was the result of a hidden mechanical or natural cause? Some suggest that the cross may have been designed to emit sound or vibrations when the wind passed through it, producing an eerie effect that might have been interpreted as a divine voice. However, no definitive explanation has ever been found to support this theory, and it remains speculative at best. Another more mystical theory proposes that the cross may have been imbued with supernatural properties. Did the cross possess some kind of power that allowed it to communicate with the world of men? Could it have been part of an ancient, forgotten tradition of sacred artifacts that were believed to hold extraordinary powers? Powers that we are only now beginning to understand? The most speculative theories, however, venture into the realm of the paranormal. Could the cross have been a conduit for some otherworldly force? Some modern theorists suggest that the talking cross might have been an early encounter with what we now understand as a form of psychic imprinting, where the object might have absorbed and projected the thoughts or fears of the people around it, creating the illusion of communication. While this idea stretches the boundaries of our understanding, it reflects the deep fascination with the unexplained that has surrounded this artifact for centuries. In the centuries since the event, no trace of the cross has ever been found. Did it vanish? Was it lost in the political turmoil that followed King Ecgfrith's reign? Or was it perhaps taken as a holy relic, hidden away from the eyes of history to protect its secret? Today, the story of the talking cross of Northumbria remains one of the most intriguing and baffling mysteries of early medieval history. It is a tale that challenges our understanding of both the sacred and the supernatural, blurring the lines between myth, miracle, and unexplained phenomenon. And as we search for answers, we are left with a haunting question. Was the voice of the cross truly divine, or was it simply a manifestation of human belief and fear? The mystery, like the cross itself, stands as a symbol of the unknown, inviting us to wonder what other secrets lie buried in the forgotten corners of history. Anne, said to have been carrying an enormous quantity of gold, set out from the heart of the Mali Empire around the year 1324. It was led by the famous ruler Mansa Musa, one of the wealthiest individuals to ever live. Musa's legendary pilgrimage to Mecca, which was marked by his extravagant gifts of gold to cities along the way, is well documented. But it is the fate of one particular caravan that has become the stuff of legend. This caravan, traveling with a vast fortune, simply disappeared, as if swallowed by the desert itself. The journey began with great fanfare and anticipation. The caravan, comprising hundreds of camels and thousands of soldiers and attendants, set out from the Mali Empire's capital of Timbuktu. It was said to be laden with gold that Musa had amassed through the wealth of his kingdom, one of the richest in West Africa at the time. The caravan's destination was the bustling market town of Tagaza, in the heart of the Sahara, where salt and other valuable goods were traded. Yet, as the caravan ventured deeper into the desert, something went terribly wrong. By the time the caravan should have reached its destination, it had vanished without a trace. Historical records provide no concrete explanation for the disappearance. Some say that the caravan was overwhelmed by a fierce sandstorm, its precious cargo lost to the winds. Others claim that the caravan was attacked by bandits, who had somehow managed to strike in one of the most desolate and remote regions of the desert. Yet neither of these theories fully accounts for the complete and utter disappearance of the caravan. No remains, no signs of a struggle, no abandoned goods were ever found. It was as if the caravan had simply ceased to exist. Over the centuries, many have attempted to explain the mystery. Some suggest that the caravan became lost in the vastness of the desert, wandering until its water and provisions ran out. The Sahara is a place where entire fleets of ships can disappear without leaving a single trace, and it is not beyond reason to think that even a well-prepared caravan could be lost to the relentless, shifting sands. Yet, the sheer size of the caravan and the fact that it was led by one of the most powerful rulers of the time makes this theory seem somewhat unlikely. Mansa Musa was a man of great power and wealth. He would not have risked his caravan without careful planning. Could the caravan have fallen victim to an attack, as some have suggested? Bandits were a real threat along the Trans-Saharan route, and a caravan carrying such an immense fortune would have been an irresistible target. However, the fact that no remains of the caravan or its gold have ever been found raises more questions than answers. If such an attack had taken place, surely there would be some remnants, some sign of the gold or the people who had once traveled with it. Yet, no evidence has ever surfaced. Another, more speculative theory points to the possibility of supernatural forces at play. In a time when the Sahara was seen as a mystical, almost otherworldly place, it is conceivable that the desert itself held some kind of secret, one that could swallow entire caravans without a trace. Ancient stories and legends abound about the Sahara's ability to erase all evidence of human existence, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Could this caravan have been claimed by the desert in such a way? Some believe that the caravan's disappearance might be tied to a form of ancient curse, or even a divine retribution for the arrogance of Mansa Musa, whose wealth and generosity were legendary. Could the wealth of the Mali Empire have attracted the wrath of the gods? Some local traditions speak of the desert as a place of balance, where excessive greed or material wealth could trigger a cosmic response. Was the caravan's vanishing an act of divine intervention, intended to correct some imbalance in the natural order? Despite the theories and speculations, no definitive answers have been found. The lost caravan of the Trans-Saharan gold route remains one of history's great mysteries, its fate obscured by time, the vastness of the desert, and the silence of the sands. Did the caravan succumb to nature's wrath, or did something more extraordinary happen? Was it attacked, lost, or perhaps even cursed? As we continue to ponder the fate of the lost caravan, we are left with more questions than answers. The mystery of the caravan's disappearance is a reminder of the unknown forces that continue to shape our world, forces that even the wealth and power of the Mali Empire could not escape. The riches that were once carried across the desert sands may still lie hidden beneath the dunes, waiting for the day when their secrets are finally revealed. Until then, the lost caravan remains one of history's most tantalizing enigmas, a story of wealth, adventure, and an unexplained vanishing that continues to capture the imagination. As we journey through the sands of history, from the vast deserts of the Sahara to the dark forests of Northumbria, We now turn our attention to the Byzantine Empire, an empire at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, a realm of political intrigue, religious complexity, and military might. Here, among the glories and tragedies of the 9th century, we encounter one of the most puzzling and chilling military phenomena ever recorded, the ghost army of Emperor Nikephoros I. The story begins in the year 811 AD, in the heart of the Byzantine Empire, with a battle that would forever alter the fate of an emperor. The battlefield was set in the Balkans, where Emperor Nikephoros I, one of the most powerful emperors of his time, faced the mighty forces of the Bulgarian Khan, Krum. The Byzantine Empire, though still a force to be reckoned with, was weakening, and the Bulgarians, led by Krum, were on the rise. Nikephoros, determined to defend his empire, marched his army into the field, unaware that this would be one of the last great campaigns of his reign. The battle, fought near the village of Pliska, was a disaster for the Byzantine forces. Nikephoros, despite his experience and leadership, was defeated. The imperial army was crushed, and the emperor himself was killed, his body desecrated by the victorious Bulgarians. This alone would have been a turning point in history, a tragic event that would be remembered for centuries. But it is what happened after the battle that has sparked a mystery that endures to this day. In the aftermath of Nikephoros' defeat, a strange and unsettling report began to circulate. According to the chroniclers of the time, in the wake of the catastrophic battle, a ghost army was said to have appeared on the battlefield. This was no ordinary army. It was described as a spectral force, marching in silence with no apparent leader, its soldiers wearing armor that gleamed in the moonlight. The army, many claimed, was made up of the very souls of those fallen in battle. Some described the ghostly soldiers as phantoms, their forms flickering in and out of existence as if they were not entirely of this world. This ghost army, as it came to be known, did not engage in battle. It did not march toward the Bulgarian forces or attempt any form of retaliation. Instead, it simply appeared after the carnage had subsided, a vision of haunting figures that lingered on the battlefield, moving as if driven by some otherworldly force. The accounts are vague, but the image of this silent, unyielding army has persisted in the historical record. One of the earliest and most significant sources of this story comes from the Byzantine historian Theophanes the Confessor, who described the appearance of the ghostly army in chilling detail. According to Theophanes, the spirits of the fallen soldiers had been summoned to the battlefield by some unseen force, perhaps even the wrath of the gods, to defend their fallen emperor or to exact some final form of justice. Theophanes himself did not seem to fully believe in the supernatural explanation, but noted that the event had been seen by many witnesses, all of whom spoke of a strange, eerie feeling in the air as the ghostly forces moved across the battlefield. But what exactly was this ghost army? Could it have been an illusion or a psychological response to the traumatic events of the battle? One plausible explanation is that the appearance of the ghostly soldiers was the result of mass hysteria, a collective hallucination brought on by the shock and grief of defeat. After all, the Byzantine army had suffered a crushing loss, with many soldiers witnessing the brutal death of their emperor. Could the stress of battle, combined with the dark and unforgiving landscape of the Balkans, have created the conditions for such vivid and disturbing visions? Another theory suggests that the ghostly soldiers were a symbolic representation of the fallen, an embodiment of the loss, the grief, and the mourning that followed the defeat. In the medieval world, where the line between the real and the supernatural was often blurred, it is possible that the ghost army was a metaphorical expression of the empire's shattered pride and the deep sense of sorrow that accompanied Nikephoros' death. It was, in some ways, a visual manifestation of the idea that the dead could still fight for their cause, even after death had claimed them. Yet, There is also the possibility that the Ghost Army was something far more mysterious and inexplicable. Some scholars have suggested that the army could have been a form of ancient military ritual, where the spirits of fallen soldiers were believed to take on a physical form, briefly returning to the mortal world to fulfill some unfinished purpose. This belief, though uncommon, was not entirely outside the realm of possibility in a time when both soldiers and civilians alike were steeped in the supernatural. Could the Ghost Army have been a manifestation of this ancient belief, summoned by some forgotten ritual or supernatural event? The most intriguing and speculative theory is that the Ghost Army was not an illusion at all, but a true manifestation of the deceased soldiers, perhaps even a form of divine intervention. Could the souls of the fallen soldiers, enraged by the desecration of their emperor's body and the brutal defeat of their army, have risen from the grave to form a spectral force? Some even suggest that the army was summoned by Nikephoros himself, as an act of divine justice to punish the Bulgarians or to prevent further desecration of the fallen. If such an event were true, it would constitute a bizarre, unprecedented occurrence in history, one that would defy all conventional understanding of life, death, and the supernatural. As with many mysterious occurrences in history, the fate of the Ghost Army remains shrouded in uncertainty. The accounts, though vivid and haunting, leave more questions than answers. Was this an act of divine retribution, a mass hallucination, or something else entirely? The mystery of the Ghost Army is yet another of history's unresolved enigmas, one that continues to stir the imagination of those who ponder the boundaries between the living and the dead, between the real and the supernatural. What did the Ghost Army represent? Was it a tragic symbol of an empire's decline or a sign of something far greater, something beyond the comprehension of mere mortals? As we reflect on the strange events that followed the fall of Nikephoros I, we are left with an unsettling thought. Some mysteries, it seems, are not meant to be fully understood, but rather to exist as haunting reminders of what lies just beyond the veil of our understanding. As the echoes of ancient battles fade into the past, there are a few that remain shrouded in mystery, marked not just by the clash of arms, but by strange, inexplicable events. One such enigma is the Battle of Maldon, fought in the year 991 AD along the banks of the River Blackwater in what is now Essex, England. This was a time of great turmoil for the Anglo-Saxons, as the Viking incursions continued to ravage the coastline. Yet, what makes this battle truly remarkable, beyond the clash of two armies, is an event that has puzzled historians and left a lingering sense of unease: the strange fog that descended on the battlefield. On that day, the Anglo-Saxon forces, led by Alderman Brittany, found themselves confronting a Viking invasion led by Olaf Tryggvason. The Anglo-Saxon army, though determined, was vastly outnumbered, and the battle seemed almost fated to be a turning point in the Viking campaigns. The events of the battle are well documented in historical records, particularly in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which recounts the bravery of Brittany and his warriors as they held their ground against the invaders. However, this is not the part of the battle that has remained embedded in the collective memory. What truly stands out is the sudden and mysterious appearance of a thick, unnatural fog that seemed to descend upon the battlefield just before the fighting reached its peak. Accounts from the time vary, but one recurring theme in the stories of the battle is the eerie presence of this fog. According to some versions of the tale, the fog was so dense that it enveloped the battlefield, obscuring the vision of both the Saxons and the Vikings, and making it nearly impossible for either side to see their opponents clearly. It was as if the world itself had been swallowed by a shroud, rendering the warriors blind to one another. The fog was not just a physical phenomenon, it was also symbolic. For those who witnessed the battle, it seemed as though it was a harbinger of doom. The eerie fog, combined with the chaos of the battle and the fact that Brittany, despite his bravery, ultimately fell in combat, gave the event a supernatural quality. In the midst of the fog, Byrhtnoth's warriors, seeing their leader fall and their chances for victory evaporate, may have felt as though they were being swallowed by an unseen force. Was this strange fog merely a product of natural weather conditions, or was it something more? An omen? A curse? Or even a manifestation of the chaos that had come to define that turbulent period? The mainstream explanation for the fog points to the natural climate conditions of the area. The region surrounding the Battle of Maldon is known for its damp, marshy terrain, and it's entirely possible that the fog could have been a typical atmospheric event. The mist could have been a combination of moisture in the air and the cool morning temperatures, particularly in an area prone to river valleys and wetlands. In this case, the fog would simply be a natural occurrence, an obstacle on the battlefield, but nothing more. However, this explanation fails to satisfy all who ponder the mystery. The timing of the fog, its sudden appearance, and its seeming connection to the course of the battle are too coincidental to dismiss entirely. Was the fog merely a product of nature, or could it have been a more symbolic occurrence, tied to the fate of the battle itself? Some have speculated that the fog could have been a result of supernatural forces at play, perhaps even the intervention of the gods. After all, the Anglo-Saxons were a people deeply connected to their understanding of fate, divine will, and the unseen forces that shaped the world around them. Could the fog have been the manifestation of a prophecy, a sign from the gods, signaling that the Saxons' defeat was inevitable? The presence of the fog at such a crucial moment, just as Byrhtnoth, the noble leader, was struck down, might have been seen by contemporaries as an omen that the gods had turned their favor toward the Vikings. Such occurrences were not uncommon in the medieval world, where battles were often perceived as more than mere clashes of armies. They were struggles between divine forces, with victory and defeat determined by the will of the gods. Some modern theories propose a more psychological explanation. Could the fog have been a product of the stress and confusion of battle, with the dense atmosphere contributing to a kind of collective hallucination among the fighters? The chaos of battle, the fear of death, and the overwhelming uncertainty of the outcome could have triggered a collective response, turning an ordinary fog into something far more sinister in the minds of the warriors. The fog, in this interpretation, becomes a psychological phenomenon, a manifestation of the warriors' own panic and despair, an externalization of the internal dread that gripped them as the battle turned against them. Then there are those who delve deeper into the more speculative realm of fringe theories. Some suggest that the fog was not a natural occurrence at all, but rather the result of an ancient, forgotten ritual, one that sought to shroud the battlefield in a mystical mist, either to protect the warriors of one side or to serve as a warning. Was the fog, in some way, an artifact of ancient magic, perhaps a relic of long-lost rituals that were invoked at moments of great conflict? Regardless of the theories, the strange fog remains one of the most unnerving aspects of the Battle of Maldon. While the battle itself, and the heroism of Byrhtnoth, is well documented in historical texts, the fog lingers in the corners of history as an unresolved mystery, an event that seems to defy the natural order of things. Was it simply a product of the environment, or was it a sign, a symbol, or something more? The strange fog of the Battle of Maldon, whether a natural phenomenon, a divine omen, or a psychological response, remains an enduring mystery, one that speaks to the complexity of how human beings interpret the world around them in times of war and crisis. As we reflect on this strange occurrence, we are left with a lingering question. What forces, seen and unseen, shape the events that define our history? And how many of these forces, hidden from view, still remain beyond our understanding? As we journey through the labyrinth of history, we often find ourselves standing in the ruins of once great civilizations, surrounded by the echoes of lost knowledge. In the heart of Al-Andalus, during the height of its intellectual and cultural brilliance, one such treasure was the library of al-Hakam II, a library so vast, so richly endowed, that it has been said to contain over 400,000 manuscripts, each one a window into the knowledge of the ancient world, from the works of Aristotle and Galen to the writings of the scholars of the Islamic Golden Age. Yet, despite its grandeur and its pivotal role in the intellectual life of the time, the fate of this magnificent collection remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Al-Hakam II, the Caliph of Córdoba during the 10th century, was a patron of learning and the arts. Under his rule, Córdoba became a center of unparalleled intellectual achievement. The city was home to scholars, poets, philosophers, and scientists, all of whom found their thoughts and ideas preserved in the books that filled the shelves of al-Hakam's library. The library was housed in the Madinat al-Zahra, a magnificent palace city built by al-Hakam, located just outside the walls of Córdoba. This city was a symbol of the Caliph's power and cultural sophistication, and at its heart stood the library, a beacon of knowledge. But then, something inexplicable happened. Over time, the once glorious library vanished. It was not destroyed by war or fire, as so many libraries of the ancient world had been, nor was it raided by invaders. Instead, it disappeared almost without a trace, leaving behind little more than a few fragmented accounts and a lingering sense of wonder. What happened to the library of al-Hakam II? How could such an extraordinary collection of knowledge simply vanish? The first and most widely accepted explanation is that the library was lost during the decline of the Caliphate of Córdoba. After the death of al-Hakam II in 976 AD, the political landscape of Al-Andalus began to unravel. The Caliphate was torn apart by internal strife and external threats, and Córdoba's once thriving intellectual community began to fragment. As the city fell into disarray, the fate of the library became uncertain. Some historians believe that the collection was either sold off, moved, or perhaps even hidden away to prevent it from falling into the hands of the invaders. Yet, no concrete records exist to confirm this, and none of the manuscripts have ever been found. The library, it seems, vanished into the ether of time. But this mainstream explanation still leaves a great many questions unanswered. Was the library truly lost due to the collapse of the Caliphate, or was there something more deliberate at play? Some suggest that the library's disappearance might have been the result of a strategic move, a decision made by those in power to protect the knowledge contained within it. During times of instability, preserving the intellectual treasures of a civilization could be seen as a threat to those who sought to control the future. Could the library have been hidden or destroyed to prevent its wealth of knowledge from influencing the course of history? This theory suggests that the library's contents, so vast and valuable, may have been kept from prying eyes, perhaps even purposefully erased from history to prevent them from falling into the hands of rival factions. There are other, more speculative theories about the fate of the library. Some point to the possibility that the library's manuscripts were simply scattered, taken by wandering scholars or individuals who sought to preserve them in private collections. If such a collection were spread across the far reaches of the Islamic world or even into Europe, it could explain why no single group has ever found the library's contents. Perhaps the knowledge of al-Hakam's library was preserved in fragments, lost to history, but still lingering in the works of later scholars who may not have even known the origins of the manuscripts they possessed. A more mystical explanation suggests that the disappearance of the library might have been connected to the idea of forbidden knowledge. In medieval times, certain texts, especially those dealing with philosophy, alchemy, and astrology, were often seen as dangerous. Could it be that the works housed in the library were considered too powerful or too dangerous, and that efforts were made to eradicate them from history? In this view, the library's disappearance becomes less of a physical event and more of a cultural and intellectual purge. The very idea of a library that held such immense power would make it a tempting target for those who feared the potential consequences of its knowledge. And then, there is the most intriguing theory of all, the idea that the library of al-Hakam II never truly disappeared. Instead, it remains hidden, waiting to be rediscovered. Some modern scholars and treasure hunters have speculated that the library was concealed in secret locations across the Iberian Peninsula, or even beyond. Could the manuscripts of al-Hakam II's library still be buried, waiting to be unearthed by those who seek to unravel the mysteries of the past? Perhaps the library's true contents, works that could alter our understanding of science, philosophy, and history, remain waiting to be found, hidden in the forgotten corners of the world. Despite these many theories, the truth remains elusive. No manuscripts from the library have ever surfaced, and no definitive trace of its existence beyond the palace city of Madinat al-Zahra has ever been found. As time moves on, the fate of the library of al-Hakam II remains one of history's most captivating mysteries. Was it destroyed in the chaos of political upheaval? Was it hidden away for safekeeping, or even erased from history entirely? Or does the library still exist, preserved in secret, awaiting discovery? The disappearance of the library of al-Hakam II challenges our assumptions about the fragility of knowledge and the lengths to which people will go to protect or conceal the wisdom of the past. What did the world lose when it lost this treasure of intellectual and cultural wealth? And more importantly, what might still lie hidden, waiting to be rediscovered in the vast, silent halls of history? The mystery, as always, persists. Brittany, the rugged peninsula in the far northwest of France, is a place steeped in mystery. Its ancient forests, rocky coastlines, and rolling hills are the stuff of legend. But perhaps one of the most enigmatic features of this land lies not in its natural beauty, but in its stones. The Whispering Stones of Brittany, massive megalithic monuments that dot the landscape, have captured the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and storytellers for centuries. These towering rocks, arranged in mysterious patterns, seem to hold a secret that remains tantalizingly out of reach. The most famous of these stone formations is Karnak, a vast field of standing stones that stretches for miles, containing over 3,000 megaliths. They are arranged in long, straight lines, which wind through the landscape, often leading to nowhere, or perhaps to somewhere. The purpose of these stones has been the subject of much debate. Were they astronomical markers, places of ritual worship, or remnants of a lost civilization? Whatever their purpose, one thing is certain. These stones are ancient, some dating back over 6,000 years, to a time long before written records, when the world was a place of myth and mystery. But the stones of Brittany are not simply known for their size or age. They are renowned for something far more elusive, a peculiar sound. It is said that, on still days, when the wind is calm and the atmosphere thick with silence, the stones begin to whisper. Some who have stood near them claim to hear soft, indistinct voices, murmuring in a language that seems both familiar and foreign. The sound is often described as a low hum, almost like the reverberations of an ancient secret being passed between the stones themselves. Could this be the remnants of some long-lost ritual, a form of communication between ancient people and their gods? Or is it simply the result of natural acoustic phenomena? Mainstream theories often suggest that the sound is simply a product of the wind interacting with the stones. The megaliths, arranged in such long, unbroken lines, could create a natural resonance, amplifying the sounds of the wind in a way that causes an eerie, whispering effect. The acoustics of the area, with its damp soil and dense air, might amplify certain frequencies, giving the illusion of voices. But why, then, do so many people report hearing different sounds, each describing a distinct voice or language, when no one else is present? There is a more speculative theory, one that suggests the whispers are not merely an acoustic oddity, but the result of some ancient form of communication. Could the stones themselves be some form of message left by the ancestors who erected them? Some proponents of this idea believe that the stones were carefully placed to harness the natural energies of the earth, creating a kind of resonance chamber that could facilitate communication between the living and the dead. In this theory, the whispers are the voices of ancient people whose spirits still linger in the stones, calling out across the ages. There are also those who suggest a more mystical explanation, one that ties the stones to the ancient beliefs of the Celts who once inhabited Brittany. According to Celtic lore, stones were not simply inanimate objects. They were living entities, imbued with spiritual power. The Celts believed that stones could act as conduits for the spirits of the deceased, and that these spirits could communicate through them. Could it be that the whispering stones of Brittany are not just markers of a forgotten past, but a gateway to another realm, where the voices of the ancient druids and their followers still echo? Some even entertain the idea that the stones were placed in alignment with celestial events, comets, solstices, or lunar cycles, and that their whispers are a kind of celestial message, still lingering long after the knowledge of their meaning was lost to time. Could the stones be tuned to the vibrations of the earth, creating a harmonic frequency that could be heard only under specific conditions? If this is true, the phenomenon could be far more complex than a simple acoustic effect. Perhaps a connection between the forces of nature and the minds of the people who once understood them. But no theory, no matter how convincing, can entirely explain the full extent of the mystery. While scientific explanations of the sounds in Brittany's megalithic fields abound, there is a persistent sense of something inexplicable, something that lingers just beyond the grasp of understanding. The accounts of those who have heard the whispers often mention a feeling of awe, even unease, a sense that something ancient and powerful is still alive in the stones, speaking in a language that is not meant for human ears. And yet the mystery persists. If the stones are merely resonating with the wind, why do they whisper only at certain times? Why do they seem to speak to those who are receptive? And why does each individual hear something different? Are these simply the tricks of the mind? Or is there something truly extraordinary happening in the presence of these ancient monuments? Perhaps the whispering stones of Brittany will always remain a mystery. Whether they are a natural phenomenon, an ancient form of communication, or something far more mystical, the secrets they hold may be lost to time, just as the people who built them have long since passed into legend. Yet, the whispers continue to beckon, inviting those who stand near to listen, to ponder, and to wonder. What might still lie hidden, waiting to be discovered? The stones, it seems, are not ready to reveal all their secrets just yet. Nestled high in the mountains of northeastern Greece lies Mount Athos, a place both revered and shrouded in mystery. Known as the Holy Mountain, it has been a center of Christian monasticism for over 1,000 years. Its rugged slopes are home to 20 autonomous monasteries, where monks live in solitude, dedicated to prayer and asceticism. To this day, the mountain is a sacred space, closed to most visitors. Only men are allowed to enter, and access is tightly controlled. Yet, despite the tranquility and spiritual reverence that permeates this place, it is also the site of a baffling mystery that has confounded both locals and historians alike: the vanishing monks of Mount Athos. The story begins in the early 20th century, during a time of political upheaval. The monks, who had lived in peaceful isolation for centuries, were suddenly confronted with a strange and inexplicable phenomenon. In several monasteries across Mount Athos, monks began to disappear. Not one or two, but entire groups, disappearing without a trace. The disappearances were not limited to any specific monastery or group of monks. They seemed to happen randomly, with no clear pattern emerging. What made this even more baffling was that no one ever heard any sounds of struggle, and no bodies were ever found. The monks simply vanished. One of the most famous cases of these disappearances occurred in the monastery of Simonopetra. In 1913, a group of monks was living in relative peace, as they had for generations. But in one night, every single monk in the monastery disappeared. According to local accounts, the monastery was found in the morning, undisturbed. No signs of forced entry, no sign of any struggle. The doors were locked from the inside, and the food in the kitchens was still fresh, as though the monks had simply walked away. Yet there was no trace of them anywhere on the mountain. Despite an extensive search, neither their bodies nor any evidence of their fate was ever found. The story of Simonopetra is not unique. Similar disappearances were reported across other monasteries on Mount Athos, with monks inexplicably vanishing without a trace. In some instances, monks would be seen one day, and the next, their cells would be found empty. No personal belongings were missing, and the monks' robes and possessions remained undisturbed. This eerie pattern led to theories ranging from the plausible to the far-fetched, but none have offered a definitive explanation. Mainstream explanations often suggest that the disappearances were the result of external forces, perhaps political instability, war, or even the intervention of local bandits or invaders. The early 20th century was a period of great turmoil in the Balkans, and Mount Athos was not immune to the shifting tides of power. The monks, isolated in their mountain retreats, could have fallen victim to these larger conflicts. However, the lack of physical evidence, no signs of violence or struggle, makes this theory seem less convincing. If the monks had been taken by outside forces, wouldn't there be more to find? Wouldn't there be signs of a struggle, or at the very least, some form of communication left behind? Some have speculated that the monks themselves were involved in their own disappearances. Could it be that, under the pressure of a changing world and the chaos surrounding them, the monks decided to leave in secret, retreating further into the mountains or even seeking a new life beyond the borders of Mount Athos? However, this theory seems improbable given the spiritual dedication that defined their lives. These were men who had committed themselves to a life of silence, prayer, and humility. Would they truly abandon the sacred mountain and their fellow monks without a word? And why would they leave without a trace? Another, more speculative theory posits that the monks' disappearance could have been influenced by mystical or supernatural forces. Mount Athos has long been seen as a place of spiritual significance, where the veil between the earthly and the divine is said to be thinner. Some have suggested that the monks may have experienced a sort of spiritual calling to depart from the material world, vanishing into a higher plane of existence. Could it be that these disappearances were not the result of external forces, but of some divine intervention, a mystical ascension that left no physical trace? This theory draws upon centuries of religious mysticism and folklore, where figures of great spiritual purity are said to transcend the earthly realm. Could the monks have been chosen to disappear as part of a divine plan, to leave behind their mortal bodies in order to serve a higher purpose? After all, Mount Athos is a place where saints and ascetics have long been revered, and where many miracles are said to have occurred. Could these vanishings be seen as another form of miraculous event, one that continues to defy explanation? As we move into the realm of fringe theories, some suggest that the monks may have discovered something hidden on the mountain, an ancient secret or treasure that compelled them to leave their earthly existence behind. Could there be something on Mount Athos that holds the key to their disappearances, some ancient relic or truth that the monks were guarding, and which they were willing to sacrifice their lives for? Despite all the theories, the fate of the vanishing monks of Mount Athos remains one of history's most perplexing mysteries. Was it a case of external forces or human error, a spiritual calling, or something far more elusive and unexplainable? The silence of the mountain has yet to offer an answer, and the absence of any evidence continues to fuel the mystery. The monks, though gone, have left behind a legacy of devotion and piety. But the question remains, what happened to them? Did they disappear into the depths of the sacred mountain, or was something else at work in the mysterious silence of Mount Athos? The answer, it seems, is still hidden among the rocks and slopes of this holy mountain, waiting perhaps for the right moment to reveal itself. The city of Baghdad, long known as a cradle of civilization, has witnessed both the heights of cultural achievement and the depths of human suffering. Nestled along the banks of the Tigris River, it has been a focal point of trade, scholarship, and power for centuries. But it is not only its glorious past that makes Baghdad a city of intrigue. Its more recent history is marked by a chilling and unexplained phenomenon: the Black Rain. In the wake of the Gulf War, which erupted in 1991, accounts began to surface from Baghdad that described a strange and unsettling event. The city, already ravaged by conflict and suffering, was struck by a thick, black rain. This rain, unlike any that had been seen before, coated the streets in a dark residue. Eyewitnesses reported that the rain was not merely a natural occurrence, but something that seemed unnatural, as if it carried with it a lingering sense of foreboding. The skies, once clouded with the smoke of burning oil wells, now became the backdrop to this eerie rainfall. The first reports of the black rain came from residents of Baghdad who had lived through the chaos of the war. Some described the rain as coming down in heavy, sticky drops, leaving a black residue on clothing, skin, and even the air. Others recalled how the rain seemed to darken the landscape, as though the very sky had been stained with an ominous tint. While some initially thought it was simply a consequence of the environmental damage caused by the war, the effects of this black rain seemed to transcend the ordinary. It wasn't just soot or dust. There was something else, something unsettling about its very composition. Scientific investigations were launched to understand the phenomenon. Initially, many suggested that the black rain was a result of the oil fires set during the Gulf War. The massive fires, fueled by burning oil wells and infrastructure, released enormous quantities of soot and pollutants into the atmosphere. This soot, it was believed, could have combined with moisture in the air to create the dark precipitation. This theory made sense on the surface. Oil fires had been known to produce black smoke, and the particulate matter in the air was certainly capable of falling back to Earth in the form of rain. But as investigations continued, questions arose that could not be easily answered. Some of the black rain was found to contain traces of chemicals and particles that went beyond the ordinary fallout of an oil fire. In some reports, researchers noted the presence of toxic substances, including heavy metals, which could be linked to the military activity that had taken place in the region. Were these traces the result of chemical weapons or other warfare agents used during the conflict? The possibility of toxic residues from the bombs and missiles that had been dropped on Baghdad raised new questions. Was this rain a byproduct of chemical warfare, or something even more nefarious? Adding to the mystery, there were conflicting reports about the rain's effects on the population. While some people experienced nothing more than the annoyance of darkened clothing and polluted air, others reported more troubling symptoms. Respiratory issues, skin irritation, and unexplained illnesses began to surface, leading some to wonder if the rain carried more than just dust and soot. Could this be the lingering effects of chemical exposure? Or was there something else, something deeper and more insidious, at work? Could the black rain have been a symptom of a much larger environmental disaster, one that would continue to haunt the region for decades to come? As the years went by and the conflict in the region continued to unfold, the mystery of the black rain seemed to fade from the public eye. However, the accounts and investigations never fully ceased. Some researchers and activists have suggested that the rain was merely a symptom of a much larger environmental collapse, one that could have been triggered by a combination of oil fires, military activity, and the long-term effects of war. Others, however, believe that the rain was a harbinger of something darker, the legacy of chemical weapons, or even something more sinister, lurking in the shadows of the Gulf War. Theories continue to swirl about the origins of the Black Rain. Some suggest that it was the result of military experiments or the use of undisclosed weapons during the conflict. Others point to the possibility that the rain was a rare environmental anomaly, an unintended consequence of the massive fires and destruction that swept through the region. Still, others speculate that the rain may have been linked to something far more mysterious, a secret event, a hidden action, or an unknown force that has yet to be uncovered. Despite these varied explanations, one fact remains clear. The Black Rain of Baghdad is a mystery that continues to resist a clear and definitive explanation. The strange and unnerving accounts of its appearance, coupled with the physical and environmental consequences it left in its wake, point to something that goes beyond the ordinary. Was it simply a byproduct of war and pollution? Or was there something more, something that has yet to be revealed? As the years go by, and the city of Baghdad struggles to rebuild from the ravages of war, the echoes of the Black Rain continue to linger. What exactly caused this strange phenomenon, and what did it leave behind? The answers may still be hidden in the records of history, buried beneath the layers of conflict and destruction. But for now, the mystery remains unsolved, leaving us with lingering questions. Was the rain truly a natural disaster, or did it signify something much darker, a lasting legacy of war, or perhaps something even more mysterious that has yet to surface? The answers, it seems, are still waiting to be discovered. Nestled deep within the heart of China, along the ancient Silk Road, lies a place that seems suspended in time, a place where art and mystery converge. The Mogao Caves of Dunhuang are home to some of the most significant Buddhist murals and sculptures ever created. For centuries, these caves, carved into the cliffs of the Gobi Desert, have drawn visitors seeking enlightenment, wonder, and in some cases, answers to questions that remain unanswered to this day. But among the treasures housed in these sacred caves, there is one mystery that stands apart from all the rest: the moving statues of Dunhuang. In the 9th century, a group of travelers passing through the area reported seeing something extraordinary. These statues, some of which were believed to be centuries old, seemed to move on their own. This unsettling phenomenon was recorded by a few observers, but has been largely forgotten in the centuries since. However, recent discoveries and accounts have reignited the mystery, drawing the attention of both historians and paranormal researchers alike. The statues themselves are remarkable, carefully sculpted in exquisite detail, their serene faces captured in eternal meditation. Some stand tall, while others are seated, each one a testimony to the craftsmanship of ancient artisans. But it was the movements, subtle yet undeniable, that have sparked the intrigue. According to ancient texts and more recent investigations, these statues would occasionally shift or alter their positions. Some witnesses reported seeing the statues move their eyes or even their arms, as if they were aware of the world around them. In one account, a traveler claimed to have seen a statue's head slowly turn to follow him as he entered the cave. Another recounting described a figure whose outstretched hand seemed to reach toward the visitor, as though in silent greeting. Such claims have been dismissed by some as the result of overactive imaginations or the effects of time and erosion on the statues themselves. After all, the caves have endured centuries of shifting sands, earthquakes, and natural wear. Could it be that these statues, made of clay and wood, simply settled or shifted due to the weight of the environment around them? The theory suggests that the moving statues might be the result of minor changes in the earth beneath the caves, shifting the foundations and causing the figures to move, albeit imperceptibly. This theory, however, fails to account for the peculiar reports of the statues making deliberate movements, or the eerie sensation some visitors claim to have felt when standing before them. Others have offered more speculative explanations. Could it be that the statues are somehow animated by the spiritual energy of the caves themselves? Dunhuang has long been regarded as a place of great spiritual significance, and some believe that the statues may have been imbued with a kind of divine presence. In Buddhist tradition, statues are often believed to be vessels for the spirits of the deities they represent. Could it be that these statues, crafted to represent the Buddha and other divine figures, were endowed with a form of sentience or power by the devout artisans who created them? The notion that these statues might possess some mystical ability to move or react to the presence of humans is certainly tantalizing, but it remains an unproven theory. Another theory ties the movements of the statues to the ancient practices of the monks and pilgrims who visited Dunhuang. Was there a hidden ritual or secret practice that caused the statues to come to life? Could these movements have been the result of a centuries-old spiritual tradition, lost to history, in which the statues were believed to respond to the prayers and offerings of the faithful? If this were the case, the movements might be seen as a form of divine communication, a subtle reminder that the spiritual world was not as distant as it seemed. Still, there are those who consider a more supernatural explanation. Dunhuang, situated on the crossroads of ancient trade routes, has always been a place where cultures and ideas converged, where the material and the spiritual seemed to intertwine. Could the movements of these statues be a form of lingering energy, a manifestation of something beyond the natural world? Some suggest that the statues may be tied to a forgotten mystery, one that stretches back to the very origins of the Buddhist teachings and the ancient practices that once flourished in this region. Were the statues created to hold a secret, one that only a select few could understand? And if so, what might that secret be? Despite the many theories, the question remains, what is the truth behind the moving statues of Dunhuang? Are they simply the result of environmental factors, or is there something far more mysterious at play? Perhaps the statues are not meant to be fully understood, but to serve as a reminder of the enigmatic nature of the world itself, a world where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual often blur. The movements of these statues continue to perplex and intrigue those who study them. Some believe they are an artifact of a long-forgotten ritual, while others consider them a miracle, a sign that the divine is closer than we might imagine. Whatever the explanation, the mystery of the moving statues of Dunhuang endures, lingering in the shadows of history, waiting to reveal its secrets, if indeed it ever does. Beyond the rugged shores of modern-day Canada, along the icy coasts of what was once called Markland, lies a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. Markland, a name etched in the sagas of the Viking Age, refers to a landmass to the west of Greenland. It is thought to have been the location of one of the most elusive Viking outposts, a settlement that vanished almost without a trace. Despite centuries of research and numerous expeditions, the exact location of the lost Viking outpost in Markland remains one of the great historical enigmas of the early medieval world. Markland was described in the Vinland sagas as a rich, wooded land, teeming with resources like timber and wildlife, but also far removed from the Viking homelands of Scandinavia. The sagas, particularly the saga of the Greenlanders and the saga of Eric the Red, recount the voyage of the Norsemen led by Leif Erikson and his subsequent exploration of the Western territories. After reaching the shores of Vinland, modern-day Newfoundland, the sagas mention the Vikings venturing further north, to a place called Markland. However, they offer few concrete details beyond its abundance of trees and the fact that it was to the north of Vinland. This brief mention, tantalizing as it may be, is all we have to go on. Yet it has sparked the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and explorers alike. The lost Viking outpost of Markland is a point of particular intrigue. If the sagas are to be believed, this settlement was established by the Norse and may have operated for several years. Yet, as with so much of the Viking exploration in North America, there is little evidence left behind. There are no known ruins that can be definitively linked to this settlement, and no signs of lasting human presence. Why, despite the resources of the region, did the Vikings fail to leave behind more substantial evidence of their outpost? What led to its sudden disappearance? In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, various researchers, inspired by the sagas, began searching for Markland. Some theorized that it lay along the Labrador Peninsula in Canada, given the natural features described in the sagas. Others suggested that the area could lie further north, perhaps along the coast of Newfoundland itself. However, despite decades of archaeological exploration, no definitive Viking sites have been identified in Markland. There are, of course, well-documented Viking settlements in Greenland and Iceland, as well as the famous Norse site at Lance o' Meadows in Newfoundland, but nothing conclusive has been found in the region of Markland. Some researchers have speculated that the lack of definitive evidence is due to the transient nature of the Vikings' presence in North America. It's possible, they argue, that the Vikings did not establish permanent settlements in Markland, but rather used the region as a seasonal outpost for timber and other resources. This theory is bolstered by the fact that the Vikings were not primarily settlers, but rather seafarers and raiders who established temporary trading stations. If the Vikings of Markland were simply passing through, then it would make sense that they would leave behind little in the way of permanent structures or settlements. But even this theory fails to explain the complete absence of any archaeological findings directly tied to Markland. Other, more speculative theories suggest that the Vikings may have been driven out of Markland by external forces, possibly indigenous groups, or even rival Viking factions. The Norse were known to have conflicts with the native Beothuk people in Newfoundland, and it's conceivable that their settlement in Markland was short-lived due to such hostilities. Could it be that the Vikings were forced to abandon their outpost, leaving nothing but a handful of forgotten artifacts behind? Alternatively, some theories point to the possibility that environmental factors, such as the harsh conditions of the North Atlantic or changing climates, may have made Markland an unviable location for long-term habitation. Could the Vikings have decided, for pragmatic reasons, to retreat to other territories where conditions were more favorable? There is even a more fantastical theory, one that hinges on the nature of the Viking sagas themselves. These sagas, written long after the events they describe, are known to blend history with myth, fact with legend. Some scholars argue that the accounts of Markland and its outpost could be exaggerated, or even entirely fabricated. Could Markland, as described in the sagas, be a place that existed only in the imagination of the saga writers? Could the references to Markland be symbolic or metaphorical rather than geographical? This theory raises more questions than answers, but it is an important part of the ongoing investigation into the Norse exploration of the New World. Despite the many theories, the lost Viking outpost in Markland remains an elusive mystery. There is still much we do not know about the Vikings' expeditions into North America. While some evidence suggests that the Norse were indeed capable of reaching the continent, the complete story of their exploration is far from clear. Was Markland the site of a fleeting outpost that was abandoned in the face of insurmountable challenges? Or was it a place so remote that it left no lasting traces, even in a world that would eventually remember the Vikings' voyages? As we search for answers, we are left with the same haunting question. What truly happened to the Viking outpost in Markland? Did it exist as the sagas suggest, or is it a mystery that will forever remain hidden in the annals of time? The search for Markland continues, and with it, the hope that one day, the secrets of the lost Viking outpost may finally be revealed. Until then, the mystery remains, waiting for the right clues to come into view. Amidst the rolling hills of Hesse, Germany, sits the Monastery of Fulda, a place of serene beauty and quiet contemplation. Founded in the 8th century by Saint Boniface, it became a center of Christian learning and power in medieval Europe. Its towering church, with its intricate stonework and stunning frescoes, tells a story of faith, devotion, and the rich history of monastic life. However, beneath the sacred beauty and spiritual tranquility of Fulda, there lies an eerie mystery that has lingered for centuries: the cursed relic of the Monastery of Fulda. The legend of the cursed relic begins with a simple object, a small, unassuming box said to contain a fragment of the true cross, the very cross upon which Jesus Christ was crucified. According to accounts, the relic was believed to possess great holy power, and for centuries it was safeguarded within the monastery's sacred walls. But what should have been a revered symbol of faith instead became a source of terrible misfortune. Over the years, monks and pilgrims who came into contact with the relic began to experience a series of strange and deadly events, leading to the belief that the object was somehow cursed. The first reports of the relic's sinister influence came in the 9th century, not long after the relic had been enshrined within the monastery. Monks who cared for the relic began to suffer inexplicable accidents, falls, illness, and even death. As the stories spread, more and more people came to believe that the relic was not a source of divine power, but a harbinger of destruction. But what made this relic different from so many others that were kept in monasteries across Europe? Was it truly cursed, or could there be a more rational explanation? Some historians suggest that the relic's sudden association with misfortune may have been linked to the political turbulence of the time. Fulda, being a key center of power in the early medieval church, was not immune to the conflicts that often plagued the church and the surrounding kingdom. Rival factions and claims to power within the monastery and the church may have contributed to a sense of dread surrounding the relic. In the minds of the faithful, these tensions could easily have been interpreted as the consequences of divine wrath unleashed by the cursed artifact. But as the centuries wore on, the mystery surrounding the relic only deepened. Over the course of the 10th and 11th centuries, stories of inexplicable deaths and misfortunes continued to surface. The monks who served at Fulda began to pass down accounts of strange occurrences associated with the relic, some claiming to hear voices emanating from the box, while others swore that the very air around it would become oppressive and thick with dread. Some even said that those who came too close to the relic would experience vivid, terrifying dreams, often of a dark and foreboding nature. Could the relic truly be cursed, as the stories suggested? Or was the fear surrounding it the product of superstition and the human tendency to find meaning in misfortune? Several theories have been proposed, but none can fully explain the strange power that the relic seemed to wield. One theory posits that the relic's association with the true cross, an object central to Christian belief, may have imbued it with a symbolic power, one that became distorted over time as it passed through the hands of various custodians. The weight of centuries of reverence, combined with the human tendency to fear the unknown, could have created a self-fulfilling cycle, with the relic's power becoming an object of dread rather than awe. Others suggest that the curse may have been more tangible, that the relic was somehow tied to dark forces, either from the ancient past or from the darker corners of medieval Christianity itself. Could the relic have been a genuine object of occult power, hidden away in the heart of a monastery that was both a place of devotion and a center of political intrigue? Some have even speculated that the relic could have been a focal point for secret rituals, its supposed curse, a manifestation of those who sought to harness its power for their own gain. Despite these theories, the true origins of the curse, and whether the relic ever truly possessed the power attributed to it, remain an open question. It was eventually removed from the monastery, and its fate remains uncertain. Some records suggest that it was lost to history, while others claim it was secretly passed to another location, its presence still tied to the misfortunes that had long been associated with it. The cursed relic of Fulda remains one of the most intriguing and unsettling mysteries of the medieval period. Was it a mere artifact of superstition, its power growing only in the minds of those who feared it? Or was there something more to the legend, something that still lies hidden in the annals of history, waiting to be uncovered? As the centuries pass and the monastery of Fulda continues to stand as a monument to faith and learning, the mystery of the cursed relic still endures. The echoes of its dark influence linger in the stories passed down through generations. Was it truly cursed? Or was it the product of a troubled time and an even more troubled imagination? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. The relic's story remains an indelible part of the tapestry of history, a haunting reminder that some mysteries may never be fully explained, no matter how much time passes. In the sprawling jungles of Southeast Asia, where the thick canopy of trees blankets the landscape and the ancient rivers carve their winding paths through the earth, lies a story that has puzzled historians and explorers alike for centuries: the disappearance of the Srivijaya royal envoys. The Srivijaya Empire, a powerful maritime kingdom that thrived from the 7th to the 13th centuries, ruled over vast stretches of the Malay archipelago. Centered in what is today Sumatra, Indonesia, the empire was a hub of commerce, culture, and influence, known for its advanced naval fleet, its flourishing trade with China and India, and its deep roots in Buddhism. The Srivijaya kings were known to send envoys to distant lands, seeking to strengthen political ties and expand their influence. But in one fateful journey, the royal envoys of Srivijaya, sent to the distant court of China in the early 11th century, vanished without a trace. The journey had begun with the usual splendor. The envoys, led by a high-ranking official, set sail from the Srivijayan port city of Palembang, a bustling hub of trade and culture. Their mission was diplomatic in nature, to offer gifts and pay tribute to the Emperor of China, solidifying the relationship between the two great powers. They had sailed across the Strait of Malacca, one of the busiest maritime routes in the world, their fleet protected by powerful ships and a well-equipped crew. The envoys were expected to reach the Tang Dynasty and return within a reasonable time. But what should have been a routine diplomatic mission turned into one of history's most enduring mysteries. No word came from the envoys after they departed. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet there were no reports of their arrival in China, no word from their ports of call, and no sightings by other seafarers on the route. The Srivijayan king, deeply concerned, sent additional ships to search for the missing envoys. Yet, despite extensive searches along the coastline of Southeast Asia, no trace of the royal mission was ever found. Some have suggested that the envoys were lost to the perils of the sea. The waters between the islands of Southeast Asia were known for their violent storms, strong currents, and treacherous reefs. Could the envoys have been swallowed by one of these violent tempests, their fleet caught in a storm so powerful that no wreckage remained? This explanation, though plausible, still leaves the questions unanswered. It seems unlikely that such a significant and well-prepared mission would have simply vanished without leaving even a single fragment of evidence behind. Other theories posit a more deliberate cause for their disappearance. Could the envoys have been attacked by pirates or hostile forces on the way to China? The 11th century was a period marked by frequent conflict in the region, with various factions vying for control of trade routes and territory. The Srivijayan navy was powerful, but their envoys might have been vulnerable in foreign waters. Pirates were known to attack ships along the maritime Silk Road, and it's possible that a pirate fleet ambushed the envoys, seizing their treasure and perhaps even killing those aboard. But still, no reports of such an attack have ever surfaced. Then, there is the possibility that the envoys were betrayed, either by a rival faction within the Srivijayan court, or by some other force seeking to weaken the empire. The internal politics of Srivijaya were often turbulent, with rival factions vying for power and influence. Could a power struggle have led to the sabotage of this mission, ensuring the envoys never made it to China? The mysterious disappearance of the envoys could, in this case, have been the result of political machinations far beyond the control of the traveling officials. A more intriguing possibility lies in the realm of the supernatural. The Srivijaya Empire, with its deep Buddhist roots, believed in the power of spirits and forces beyond the physical world. Some suggest that the disappearance of the envoys was not the result of human hands, but the will of the gods. Could the royal envoys have angered some higher power or violated a sacred law, resulting in their disappearance as a form of divine retribution? This theory, though speculative, speaks to the mystical worldview of the Srivijayan people and offers a more fantastical explanation for the event. Despite the many theories, the disappearance of the Srivijaya royal envoys remains one of history's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. Was it a simple matter of navigational error, or an attack by pirates? Or was there something more extraordinary at play, a deeper, perhaps divine cause that led to the vanishing of these men on their important diplomatic mission? The Srivijayan Empire, once a mighty force in the Southeast Asian world, eventually faded into history, leaving behind only fragments of its once great civilization. But the mystery of the lost envoys endures, a tantalizing puzzle that still captures the imagination of those who look back on the empire's legacy. What truly happened to the Srivijaya royal envoys? The answer may never be known, but the legend of their disappearance, like so many other forgotten stories, remains an open question, a reminder that history is often more mysterious than we can ever fully understand. As night falls over Winchester, England, the streets grow eerily quiet, save for the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. The ancient city, once the capital of Anglo-Saxon England, holds within its walls centuries of history. Each stone, each building, each quiet corner steeped in secrets. Among the many legends and ghost stories that haunt this historic place, one remains particularly strange and persistent: the mystery of the phantom bells of Winchester. The tale begins at the Winchester Cathedral, a magnificent structure that dates back to the 11th century, with its towering spires and intricate architecture standing as a testament to medieval craftsmanship. The cathedral is known for its beauty and its religious significance, but it is also infamous for an eerie sound that many have claimed to hear over the years: the tolling of bells, chiming deep into the night, though no one can ever seem to find the source. The phenomenon is not a recent one. For centuries, residents of Winchester have reported hearing the sound of bells ringing in the dead of night, loud, clear, and unmistakable. But when they rush to the cathedral to investigate, they find the bells silent, unmoving, and undisturbed. No one is there to pull the ropes, and no bell tower is active. Yet, the sound persists, lingering in the stillness like an echo from another time. The first recorded account of the phantom bells comes from the 17th century, though it is likely that the mysterious tolls had been occurring long before that. Several accounts from local residents describe waking to the sound of bells ringing in the early hours of the morning, only to discover that the bell ringers had long since gone home, and the cathedral's bells had remained still. The eerie sounds, according to witnesses, were sometimes accompanied by a strange, heavy fog that seemed to roll in from the cathedral's stone walls. What is most perplexing about the phantom bells is their seemingly erratic nature. Some reports suggest that the bells ring for hours, while others claim to have heard them for only a few brief moments. The bells' chimes have been described as haunting, almost mournful, as though they are calling out from the past. Some say they are an omen, others a warning, but no one has ever been able to pinpoint a definitive cause. There are, of course, explanations grounded in the physical world. One popular theory suggests that the bells might be the result of acoustic anomalies. Some claim that the stone walls of the cathedral, combined with the geography of Winchester, could create unusual sound patterns, causing echoes to carry in unexpected ways. This theory posits that the tolling of the bells might be a kind of acoustic illusion, a sound reverberating in a way that makes it seem as though it is coming from the bell tower when, in reality, it is merely an echo. While acoustics can indeed be strange and difficult to fully understand, this theory fails to explain the intensity and consistency of the reports. After all, the same eerie sound has been described by people in different parts of the city, often during very specific times of the night. Other theories point to the possibility of historical connections. Some suggest that the phantom bells are linked to an event long buried in Winchester's past. One tale ties the sounds to a massive fire that devastated the cathedral in the early 12th century, claiming that the tolling bells are the spirits of those lost in the blaze, forever trapped in the cathedral's tower. Another legend suggests that the bells might be linked to the murder of a bell ringer during the medieval period, a figure whose tragic end left an indelible mark on the city. Could the sounds of the bells be the restless echoes of a violent past, forever ringing out in the darkness? Some even entertain the idea that the sounds are a form of time displacement, a strange and unexplained anomaly where time itself seems to blur, briefly transporting those who hear it back to another era. The idea of time echoes or temporal anomalies has captured the imagination of some researchers, but again, no definitive proof exists to confirm this theory. Despite the many theories, the true origin of the phantom bells of Winchester remains elusive. Are they the product of a ghostly presence, lingering from a forgotten chapter in the cathedral's history? Or could they be something more scientifically explainable, yet still out of our reach to fully comprehend? What remains clear is that the mystery of the phantom bells endures, capturing the imaginations of those who hear their tolls and those who seek to uncover the truth. Whether a natural phenomenon, a supernatural occurrence, or something entirely beyond our understanding, the phantom bells of Winchester remain a haunting enigma. The city continues to echo with their distant sound, unseen, unexplained, and eternal. What truly lies behind the tolling bells? The answer remains locked in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As the sun sets over the ancient city of Baghdad, the shadows lengthen across its crumbling walls and once glorious palaces. Along the banks of the Tigris River, whispers of a time long past linger in the air, of a golden age when knowledge and culture flourished under the protection of the great House of Wisdom. Founded during the reign of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 9th century, this library and academy became the intellectual heart of the Islamic world, a beacon of learning that attracted scholars from across the globe. But within its storied halls lies a mystery that has captivated historians and treasure hunters alike: the secret of the hidden chamber of the House of Wisdom. The House of Wisdom, or Beit al-Hikmah, was a monumental institution where the greatest minds of the era came to study and translate ancient texts, laying the groundwork for many of the scientific, mathematical, and philosophical advancements that shaped the world. It housed a vast collection of manuscripts, some dating back to the ancient Greeks, Persians, and Indians, while others were original works of Muslim scholars. The contributions made here in fields ranging from astronomy to medicine to mathematics were nothing short of revolutionary. Yet, despite the House of Wisdom's fame and significance, there is a lingering enigma surrounding its fate. In the 13th century, with the Mongol invasion of Baghdad and the destruction of the Abbasid Caliphate, the institution was shattered. Many of its priceless manuscripts were lost to the flames, and the once thriving hub of intellectual exchange fell into ruin. But some believe that the House of Wisdom didn't merely succumb to the flames. It may have hidden away its greatest secrets, tucked deep inside the labyrinthine corridors of the library itself. The existence of a hidden chamber within the House of Wisdom is suggested by a few obscure historical accounts, but no definitive proof has ever surfaced. Some scholars speculate that it was a concealed vault containing priceless texts, works of knowledge that were too valuable to fall into the hands of the invaders. These texts, it is believed, contained esoteric knowledge and ideas so advanced for their time that they might have revolutionized the course of history had they survived. In a world where the written word held immense power, could the House of Wisdom have safeguarded more than just books? Could it have been a repository of ancient secrets designed to protect knowledge that was too dangerous to share? For centuries, there have been rumors, tales passed down by those who claim to have seen maps of hidden chambers or artifacts that point to the existence of such a vault. Some of these stories describe the chamber as being located beneath the library's grand halls, hidden behind false walls or beneath the floors. Others hint at a more mystical explanation, suggesting that the chamber was sealed by cryptic symbols and puzzles, only to be unlocked by those who truly understand the deeper layers of knowledge contained within the texts of the House of Wisdom. The mystery has given rise to a host of theories, ranging from the purely speculative to the fantastical. Could it be that the chamber contained alchemical texts, full of ancient formulas and practices long since forgotten, hinting at the power of transmutation and the pursuit of immortality? Or perhaps astronomical knowledge so advanced it might have predicted celestial events with astonishing accuracy, long before modern science could comprehend them. Some even claim that the chamber was home to religious manuscripts, texts that offered insights into the spiritual mysteries of the universe, works that were too controversial, too profound, to be shared with the masses. One of the most tantalizing theories is that the hidden chamber may have contained maps, not of the physical world, but of other dimensions or realms, a cartography of knowledge that extends beyond the visible. Such theories, though speculative, ask us to imagine a secret knowledge not just of the past, but of a future yet to be discovered. Could there be a cosmic connection between the wisdom stored at the House of Wisdom and the wonders of the universe that we have yet to understand? Despite the various theories, no tangible evidence has ever emerged to confirm the existence of the hidden chamber. The library was decimated by the Mongols, and with it, much of the knowledge it once housed. Many of the manuscripts were destroyed, burned, or scattered, leaving us with only fragments of the once glorious collection. Yet the stories persist, and the mystery endures, leaving us to wonder, was there a secret hidden away in the depths of the House of Wisdom? And if so, could it still be out there, waiting to be uncovered? Perhaps the truth lies in the final words of one of the scholars who worked at the House of Wisdom. The greatest secrets are those that are hidden, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The mystery of the hidden chamber remains unsolved, but its allure continues to capture the imagination of those who seek to uncover the lost knowledge of the ancient world. Could the key to this mystery lie beneath the ruins of the House of Wisdom, waiting to reveal its secrets to the world once again? Only time will tell. Nestled deep in the Sichuan province of modern-day China, the ancient ruins of Sanxingdui stand as an enigma, silent witnesses to a civilization whose origins, culture, and eventual disappearance continue to puzzle historians, archaeologists, and scholars alike. The site, which dates back to approximately 1250 BCE, is renowned for its remarkable bronze statues and extravagantly detailed artifacts, many of which defy the conventional understanding of early Chinese society. Yet, amid these extraordinary relics, there lies an even more compelling mystery: the disappearance of the Sanxingdui priestly lineage. The discovery of the Sanxingdui site in the 1920s was nothing short of revolutionary. Unearthed in the early 20th century, its contents shattered many assumptions about early Chinese history. Bronze masks with exaggerated facial features, towering statues of human-like figures, intricate jade jewelry, and objects with symbolic significance were all uncovered in a seemingly deliberate and highly organized manner. Among these artifacts, one element stood out in particular: the eerie and otherworldly figures that many scholars believed were connected to the priestly class of the Sangsingdui civilization. But what happened to this advanced culture? Where did its people go? And why, after flourishing for centuries, did the Sangsingdui civilization vanish without a trace, leaving behind only its cryptic remains? Historians have long speculated that the Sangsingdui civilization was a vibrant, highly organized society with deep religious and ceremonial practices. The sheer scale and complexity of their bronze work suggests a society capable of incredible craftsmanship and technological innovation, but also one that would have relied heavily on priestly figures, individuals who were likely charged with mediating between the gods and the people. Many of the artifacts suggest that these priests held significant power, overseeing rituals that might have been crucial to the spiritual and social cohesion of their community. However, just as the city seemed to be at its peak, Sangsingdui's people disappeared. Archaeological evidence does not suggest a war or an external invasion. There are no clear signs of destruction or violence. Instead, the sudden departure of the Sangsingdui civilization remains as mysterious as it is complete. The city was abandoned, and the priests who might have once commanded such power seem to have vanished without a trace. One widely accepted theory points to environmental factors. Some suggest that a catastrophic flood or a significant environmental disaster may have forced the Sangsingdui people to flee their sacred city. The location of Sangsingdui, near the banks of the Min River, certainly makes it vulnerable to flooding, and the discovery of ancient flood deposits around the site could lend some weight to this idea. Could a sudden natural disaster have wiped out the society, leaving behind only their sacred artifacts as a testament to their lost grandeur? Yet, this explanation still leaves many questions unanswered. The level of organization required to build the monumental statues and craft intricate artifacts suggests a society that was not easily toppled. And while the idea of a flood is plausible, it seems unlikely that such a sophisticated culture would have left no further trace in the aftermath of a disaster. What then could explain the sudden disappearance of the Sangsingdui priestly lineage, whose very existence seemed tied to the maintenance of this civilization? Some have turned to more speculative theories, suggesting that the disappearance of the priests could be linked to religious upheaval or a cultural shift. Were the priests overthrown, their power usurped by a new order or belief system that rendered their influence obsolete? Or could the sudden abandonment of the site have been a deliberate act, a ritualistic withdrawal by a powerful class that sought to leave their sacred city and vanish into the unknown for reasons known only to them? Still, the most tantalizing theory involves a possible mystical or spiritual significance. Could the priests have chosen to abandon their city in pursuit of an otherworldly calling, perhaps related to a religious vision or prophecy? The ritualistic masks and strange symbolism found in the artifacts lead some to speculate that the Sangsingdui civilization was guided by spiritual beliefs far beyond the realms of mere earthly existence. Could the priests have believed they were called to another plane of existence, or perhaps even to a place beyond time itself? Despite decades of excavation and study, the mystery of the Sangsingdui priestly lineage remains unresolved. No records, no inscriptions, no definitive evidence has ever surfaced to explain why the city was abandoned and why the priests disappeared. The extraordinary artifacts they left behind seem almost like a message, but the meaning of that message remains elusive. What remains is the question that haunts every scholar who examines the ruins of Sangsingdui. Did the priests of Sangsingdui truly vanish, or have we simply yet to discover where they went? The answer, buried beneath centuries of dust, may still be waiting to be uncovered. and in the silent gaze of the bronze masks and the stillness of the ancient statues, the people of Sangsingdui continue to whisper their secrets, secrets that have yet to be fully understood.